Now, secondly, remember, in a real world blog, this would be generated dynamically. But for now, you're just learning about markup, so we can hard code all of this in. And finally, we have the introduction, so we can wrap that within p tags. It's also common, you might see somebody wrap this within something called text, or you might see body. That's common too, and that's when you need to target that text specifically and nothing else. And I need to make sure that I wrap this within paragraph tags. And clean this up. There we are. So now we have our body and we have our 2 paragraph tags. And then finally we have this continue. And so we'll wrap that with an anchor tag, and the ref is going to be nothing. The value will be continue. And if you want, we can either wrap this within parentheses like so, or you could do it within your CSS. As I think that's a stylistic thing, maybe we'll have some fun and put it in our CSS, though it doesn't really matter. All right, so notice not once have we looked at our page while developing this markup. We don't need to. Right now, we're just creating markup. We'll do the design later. So now we are finished with it. Let's go ahead and view what we have in the browser. And here we are. So you can see this is clean, unstyled markup. The next step is to make it look like what you see here using CSS. So I'm going to open up my style sheet. I want you to note that we are linking to this style sheet as per usual. So the first step is we need to style our wrapper. And in this case, we don't have a real website, so we will use the body as a wrapper. And I'm going to set the width to an arbitrary value. I could measure this, but we don't need to. 600 pixels, and we'll make sure that the content is centered on the page. Now I'm going to zoom out a few clicks and reload, and now you can see that has been centered. Now also, if you'd like to provide some padding, you could maybe set 20 pixels on the top and bottom and auto on the left and right. If I reload, you can see that's taking effect. And this is a new syntax. So we know we can do margin top and margin bottom of 20 pixels, but isn't that redundant? Well, there are also shorthands, and there's 2 different forms. One, you specify margin, and then you can go like a clock, top, right, bottom, left. Top, right, bottom, left. So if we needed to convert this right here, we would say top is 20, right is 0, bottom is 20 as well, and left is 0. So now we have successfully converted it, but we can even reduce this as well, because notice this is fairly common where your top and bottom will be one value and the left and right will be a different value. So we can reduce this even more so by doing margin, top and bottom for the first param, and left and right for the second param. So this is identical to this. Now there's one more form. I don't want to overload you, but if you want to do margin with 3 values, so if I did 20 pixels, 5 pixels, 10 pixels, this means 20 pixels for the top, 5 pixels for the right, 10 pixels for margin bottom, and because we did not specify left, the right value will be substituted. So this is the exact same thing as this. Don't worry if that seems like too much. For now, you can get away with simply using this form. So I'm going to remove all of this, and I'll get rid of this one as well. And now we have some margin of 20 pixels on the top and the bottom. Good. What's the next step? Well, we know right here that this image is floated to the left. So this may present a little bit of confusion for you because yes, the image is floated to the left, but notice everything below it is blank. So how can we do that? Well, first, let's simply try floating the image. So in this case, we don't want to target all images because what that's going to do, even though it will work in this instance, what that is going to do is find every single image in your website and float it. And you certainly don't want that. So we can restrict it to only the image within the article element. And if you need it to be more specific, because remember, you can have multiple article elements on your page, you could provide that with a class. In this case, let's keep it generic. And I'll say find all images within the article. Next, I'm going to reload the page, and now you can see that has been floated to the left. But as you can see, there's very little room, and we need some spacing. If we come back, you can see there's roughly 20 pixels. So you could measure this, but again, we're mostly just having fun. So I'm going to provide some margin right, push the text away. And now if I reload the page, can you see that's been pushed away a little bit? If I zoom into full size, you can see that looks about right. Maybe we can adjust it to 25. But notice now, this is what I was referring to. We floated the image to the left successfully, but then once the text gets below the image, the float is no longer effective because the image has completed and the text continues as it would before. So what we really need is a way to have a whole block to the left. That way anything below the image is blank, as you can see right here. So